Ahoy everyone, this is Dr. Bertalan Meskó, and this is the Medical Futurist live YouTube Q&A, and we haven't seen each other for a while. We had quite a summer break. I hope you had a chance to refresh yourself too, but now we are back in action. At the Medical Futurist, what we do, if you haven't seen us already, we are trying to provide context about all the changes, technological, cultural transformations in healthcare with a special view and emphasis on the technological evolution. So we talk about digital health technologies, AI, and exciting trends out there by using futures methods. And today's topic is going to be all the major trends in artificial intelligence and the pharmaceutical industry. And the reason we chose this topic for today's live Q&A is that for about 15 years now, I've been giving talks, keynotes, presentations to pharma companies, basically the top 20 pharma companies in the world. I've been traveling around the world, and since the pandemic, I've given more and more virtual talks too. But I've done this many times, hundreds of times. I've talked about the trends that I think will shape how pharma companies will do their business from a few years from now on, and what kind of things, insights, changes they might want to be aware of to make sure that they will stay as competitive as possible. So the plan is that I will give a very short talk now. I will just describe a few of these trends that I'd like to highlight in my presentations, and then we have plenty of time to deep dive into the topic, most importantly with your questions. Some of you submitted a few very thoughtful questions already through the registration website. But first of all, thank you so much for all of you for being here. I can see that we have viewers from Germany, from Turkey, South Carolina, USA, UK, Delaware, USA, Greece, Poland, New Jersey, USA. We have quite an international audience, as always, we have at the Medical Futurist. So, diving into that, let's jump right into the topic because we have plenty of things to talk about. And in the meantime, please prepare your questions. You can ask me about anything that concerns you, that keeps you up at night about digital health, AI, or the pharma industry. But as a topic, we would like to keep on focusing on AI trends in pharma. So let's see where we are. Very short talk, just about the basics, the most important things about this transformation. And to make sure that we are on the absolute same page, we have to understand what kind of AI we are talking about here. So artificial intelligence, and the kind of artificial intelligence I will talk regarding trends here is actually artificial narrow intelligence, the first type of AI based on Nick Bostrom's UK philosophers and AI scientists famous characterization in his book Superintelligence. And artificial narrow intelligence means that AI can perform a very well-defined single task, but it cannot do any other tasks besides that. So it can play a two-player board game like chess or Go. It can spot signs of cancer on a CT scan. It can do one very well-defined thing, and this is the only AI we have today. For AI to reach the second stage, which would be artificial general intelligence, it would mean that one AI would have your personal cognitive capacity. So whatever you are capable of, essentially the AI could do the same. And that's a huge difference. And still we are quite far from that. The whole idea behind researchers in AI is just not to reach the second stage. So in this way, we could keep on enjoying the benefits of using AI, especially in the pharma industry, without completely losing control. And just a few trends that could be relevant about that. The first is that healthcare has been becoming globalized because of the digital health transformation, cultural transformation. And stories like the one I'm telling you now has become absolutely realistic. So now a patient from Australia could submit a cancerous tissue sample, a so-called biopsy, to a startup in Belgium. That startup can use DNA sequencing technology to provide the genetic material, the genetic code of that cancerous tissue. Then they could use another startup in the US that has been developing an AI-based algorithm to find matching clinical trials based on that genetic background. And maybe there is a clinical trial being run on a Spanish island by a Japanese pharma company. Essentially, for the patient, it would mean that they would receive state-of-the-art treatment. And that's a huge difference. Just think about that. Instead of relying on their country's healthcare system, now because of the amazing access to technologies and information and insights worldwide, patients could receive precision treatment for their type of cancer because they could find the right clinical trial for that purpose. I'm not saying that it has not been available before the AI revolution, but AI has made it much better and easier to deal with that. All right. The second trend here is about involving patients on the highest level of decision making. So of course, I've been lucky enough to witness the evolution of how pharma company CEOs have started talking about the importance of patients and patient centricity somewhere in 2012, 2011, somewhere along the line. But now it's different. Patient design means that you involve patients on the highest level of decision making. So there should be a patient advisory board directly advising the CEO level in a pharma company, the director level at a healthcare organization, and even the ministry level at a healthcare government. And it's a proactive process for patients instead of being a passive process. And I will also share soon a link in the chat about a scientific paper we published about the importance of patient design. A third trend concerning AI is about new reimbursement models. So the general idea for pharma companies has always been that they invest into factories and research and development, and they will come up with medications and drugs. Some of them will be new, some of them will be repurposed. And that has been the whole business of the pharma industry. But in the last couple of years, because of the digital health and AI revolution, new packages started to appear on the market. For example, in Germany, the healthcare providers started paying more for a package of a diabetes medication coupled with an award-winning diabetes smartphone app. And you can imagine that more and more of these technological innovations, smartphone apps, wearable sensors, even direct-to-consumer tests, started using artificial intelligence to make the service more efficient for patients, to make, or for customers, to make the results more understandable and more useful in the medical decision-making process. The third trend here is about digital therapeutics, and it still sounds like something science fiction to me, even though I'm well aware that this trend has been around for many years. But just the idea that it's not only possible to treat patients with medications, biomedical innovation, so-called drugs, but we can also reach similar results by allowing patients or encouraging them to use technology-based solutions. It still sounds like something out of science fiction. Even though the evidence in the background through peer-reviewed studies and clinical trials have been increasing, and there are many cases when in sleep apnea, in diabetes, for mental health conditions, in depression, anxiety, technology-based solutions have been proven to be as efficient, at least if not more, than biomedical innovations. And AI plays a big role in that, because how could we deal with the amount of data we can measure through these technologies without AI-based tech services actively analyzing the data for us and providing insights about what to do about them? A fourth trend is around technology giants. And if you follow the Medical Futurist channels, you must be aware that we have been talking about this topic for many, many years now. We've been following every single announcement very closely because this is exciting. It's exciting to see how technology companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, all these have been marching into healthcare. And we even published a scientific paper about the first collaborations between these tech giants and healthcare institutions, because that's where we see the biggest opportunity. So while I see that, at least that's the feedback I get, that many pharma companies see tech giants as competitors, I don't see in what areas these companies can compete with each other. Because tech companies are amazing at providing products, technological products, that millions, if not billions of people want to use. And pharma companies are not so good at that. But pharma companies have the expertise, the experience, the knowledge, the understanding about regulations, about working with patients and physicians, that technology giants won't have, not even decades from now. So I see a huge opportunity and untapped potential for the collaborations between these two kinds of companies. Yes, and just a few more things here about maybe the most important aspect of the pharma industry's AI revolution. Of course, it's about clinical trials, because there are, as you've seen, there are exciting areas where AI could play a role and still pharma companies could benefit from that. But of course, pharma companies basically look at ROI, and if there's a huge return on investment, then they will keep on investing into that. And AI seems to be the most useful and most lucrative these days in clinical trials. So for years, we've been analyzing at the Medical Futurist in what points exactly of clinical trials AI could play a role. And I've spent quite a significant amount of time persuading pharma decision makers to invest into this area because AI will play a crucial role in clinical trials. For example, in this article, which I will share with you in a second, you can see that there are two figures. Both are showing the number of AI-discovered molecules in clinical trials, but one figure is focusing on which phase of a clinical trial these molecules have been involved in year by year, and the second shows what kind of molecules and targets we have been seeing. As you can see, the biggest amount, of course, is involved in phase 1. The second is phase 2. Very low amount is involved in phase 3 or already launched clinical trials. It's understandable because we are very new in the process, and these are only the first few years of using AI in the clinical trial process. And the second shows that there are many AI-discovered targets as well as small molecules, some antibodies and vaccines, and since the COVID pandemic, it has become a bit more prominent, and AI repurposed molecules too. What does that mean? I will also share this article with you, the drug discovery in the age of AI we just published a few days ago, in which we analyze the drug discovery process. We go through step by step or stage by stage, and we describe real-life examples about how the pharma industry has been using AI for several purposes. One is obviously simply identifying potential targets. So if you think about it, many years ago or even a decade ago, pharma companies could only start with a few potential molecule targets that could later become part of a clinical trial and maybe could be transformed into a real-life product on the market. But now, because of these AI tools, they start with a lot more potential targets, and that gives them a bit of more flexibility and maybe a higher chance of success at the end. Because clinical trials, as you know, are very lengthy. It sometimes takes a decade to go through a clinical trial, and it can cost billions of dollars. And if you start with a few potential targets and you go through this lengthy and expensive process and you don't end up with a product, this is a huge loss financially for the pharma company. So starting with more potential targets, it's a huge advance on the side of pharma companies. The second one is drug formulation. And I think last year was a pivotal moment in this evolution when Google's AlphaFold, and I think DeepMind has also been working on that, became accessible. And this AI model could predict how potential candidates bind to proteins and influence human diseases. This is huge. Of course, researchers have been working on that for decades, but the amplitude of this change is the one that really matters here. That these AI models can do that in the number of millions, not just a few hundreds or a few dozens. And one more thing is about drug repurposing. This is also huge because if you understand the molecular background and the protein-protein interactions of potential drug targets, and you find out that AI finds out that there is a drug that has not been used for managing diabetes, for example, but based on its molecular background and this better understanding of its background, it could be repurposed for that. And it makes sense to launch a clinical trial about that. Then we can start repurposing a lot of drugs, and this way it's like essentially creating new drugs for treating those medical conditions, even though you haven't come up with a new drug target or molecule. And this is huge. So I would stop at this point because I think these are enough examples. And of course, I promise you to submit these examples so you can see them in the chat too. I'm just doing that right away. I'm looking at your questions if you have any already. In the meantime, welcome everyone from Switzerland, from all these amazing places. Hello, sir. Some tips for students related to how you use AI for your benefits. It's hard to tell, but I wrote a career guide for exactly this purpose, which I'm sharing with you in the chat right now. Minakshi. Okay. Robert Souza Santos. Will this slide be saved? So of course you can watch it later. I always publish all these live Q&As, so you can watch it later whenever you want. Bogdan. Hi. Are there any open AI solutions which can interpret DNA sequencing information, blood tests, and information from Apple Health or other medical applications and guide people to become healthier? I'm not aware of any. If I can be a bit more, self-confident about this, I'm pretty sure there is none like this, like that, because for this, one company's AI solution you should be able to connect that to many other data sources, and that's something that no wearable technology or social media or healthcare company allows. So what you can do instead, you can download the data from your wearable tracker, from your lab results, from your genetic test, and you can use ChatGPT, especially the new O1 format that's much better at advanced reasoning. And you can ask very specific questions by uploading the databases, and maybe it would be able to tell you anything, like provide you with some suggestions, but those are not like types of medical advice, of course, and the tool itself is not medically regulated, but for some insights, it could become handy. All right. I got a question from Stacy Erickson. Will AI, let me share the question with you too. Will AI make adhering to regulation easier or more complicated? A very good question to ask. I think it's going to be much more complicated to adhere to AI, especially when talking about pharma companies. Just imagine that before, when pharma companies came up with a product, they had decades, if not hundreds of years of experience, how to bring that to the market. The regulations were clear, very strict, but clear. And these pharma companies have been working with regulators worldwide. But now about AI, in many cases, not even pharma companies develop the AI solutions that they are using in clinical trials or drug repurposing. So they have to have a third party involved in the process. And not even regulations are clear enough how to handle the sensitive information coming from these solutions. And so it's much more complicated now, even though it's inevitable and pharma companies will keep on investing into AI, but it's essentially much harder to comply with regulations because of that. Okay, next question. It's from Shannon Heisenrader. Interested in learning about AI and the different phases of pharmaceutical development? A good question. I think the best you could do about this is if you click on the second link I'll just share with you, because that's an article we wrote about this exact topic. Here's a question from Robert Di Giovanni. What a beautiful name. What tasks could and could not AI take over in pharma development jobs? Look, just like in the general case of AI replacing jobs, I'm pretty sure that not jobs will be replaced by AI, but certain repetitive and database tasks could and should be replaced by automation. But to replace, researcher's job at a pharma company that has been doing that job for decades and have experience in that, because an AI can do those tasks more efficiently, I just can't imagine that happening anytime soon. But the idea that those researchers working in R&D in pharma companies having to learn to use AI for the tasks they have been doing for decades, that's something I'm pretty sure they have to do. So in a form, they have to start reinventing themselves by learning to use AI, or if I can be more specific, by obtaining the skill we call prompt engineering. That's the most crucial skill in the 21st century for a life science researcher or even medical professional. Koshechkin Konstantin, I hope I can pronounce your names well enough. How do you think, what are the applications of AI beyond R&D? For example, in communications with patients or doctors, marketing, and so on, for example, based on the chatbot. I guess you are referring to generative AI, like large language models. I can imagine that pharma companies are using those models for customer services, like using them as chatbots, even though, there is quite a risk that these chatbots make a mistake or start hallucinating. It's still in the picture. But when you cannot pay enough people to do those kinds of tasks and jobs, I totally understand that generative AI will and has been used for customer service implications. I can also imagine that sales and marketing people working within pharma companies almost every day use generative AI to help generate ideas or write better texts or help work on strategies. And I know by fact that Roche has their own large language model called Roche GPT. So they have invested heavily into that. And now many Roche employees around the world can use their own tool day by day. So they don't, it's different than using ChatGPT. As a pharma company employee, you might be afraid of losing precious data, or you might share important stuff with a private company, with a third party company. But if you have your own large language model, then it's not in the picture. So I understand that pharma companies have been doing that. Paul Duisings has a good question to ask, which I'm not sure I will answer. Do you have any overview of which AI tools like AlphaFold are available as open software? I've seen many lists of open access AI softwares, but just please elaborate. Are you all interested in protein folding technologies like AlphaFold, or any healthcare applications that would be AI based and still open access? Because I can help find solutions for that. Ricardo Moraes has a question about medical affairs. Quite an exciting topic for me, because many times I've been invited to internal meetings with the leaders of medical affairs within a company, and they have to make very cost-sensitive solutions and decisions about the company's future. So medical affairs is quite an important part of every pharma company. So what's the future in medical affairs? I think the future in medical affairs is mostly about how differently medical affairs leaders can address their target customers, whether they are patients or medical professionals, how they can use AI-based services to better reach them, to use strategies that would involve them or engage them better, or find marketing lines that would help persuade them to to use the products that those pharma companies are developing, mostly through these ways. But that's just my own opinion. But in the last couple of years, I would have expected like medical associations and healthcare governments to provide clear guidelines or recommendations, policies for medical professionals about how to use AI-based services, but that has not been the case. There are a few exceptions in the US and Canada, but specifically not worldwide. So I would see the role of medical affairs in all that, in filling that skill gap and knowledge gap that we have in the case of medical professionals about how much they know about AI, how many fears they have about that technology, how they can learn to trust it, and an entity must help them reach that goal. But I don't see, again, medical associations or healthcare governments being able to do that. Dave Baldwin, let me share a question with everyone else. I'm in tech enablement for HC and LS, healthcare and life sciences. It's a puzzle for me. Earlier, you mentioned we are in the AI first phase. Tech industry is funding the hype. How long will it take to become part of regulated industry cultures? Again, if you look only at this, then we have to realize that it's part of the culture, the regulatory culture already. Otherwise, it would be impossible to use AI-based services in clinical trials. The question is not when it becomes part of that, but how far regulatory bodies like the FDA can go. That's the real question here. Because regulating basic AI technologies, I think it has been solved already in but like when we look at, and I will share the link with you in a second, all the now almost 1,000 AI-based medical technologies the FDA has published, then you will see hundreds and hundreds of examples when it's part of the culture already. The question is how the regulatory bodies can deal with adaptive algorithms, the holy grail of the pharma AI revolution. When an algorithm becomes different by the time they start using it in practice, then the regulatory body regulated and approved a different version of that technology, and that carries a huge risk. But the whole nature of adaptive algorithms is that they will change 1,000 times the next day, and you can't iterate and approve every single version. So they have to come up with a new regulatory format. Maybe, I guess that's the idea behind the FDA, regulating the companies developing those adaptive algorithms, then regulating every single adaptive algorithm one by one. So any applications, Paul, then I'm not going to be very useful for you for that. If I would do a search myself for open access AI softwares, and you will find, tens and dozens of lists for that. In healthcare, there aren't many. There are a few basic AI softwares that are available for free download, but mostly companies are developing these for themselves. Krish, can you please help me with a roadmap in pharma industry? How can I learn AI that would help me be beneficial for the industry after my bachelor's degree? It's hard to tell. The career guide I shared with you, which I will share again, is the best like source of advice that I can give to you. That if you follow those suggestions, then I think you will find a way to join the pharma industry if that's what you have in mind. But let's see the other questions too. Phul Kanwar Singh Brar had this question. As it's an utmost necessity to learn AI in healthcare, is there any structured course available anywhere in India or abroad? That I would say globally there is, and I'm sorry for showing you the course that we have published, but you know, that's the course I can stand by because I designed the course material myself. On this link, you will find four courses, but two of those courses, one will be about AI's general role in healthcare. That's a longer course, I would say a one-day virtual course, and a short course about generative AI's role in healthcare. And I cannot tell you how proud I am that after 6 reviews, it's at 5 stars. I'm very proud of that. I'm not bragging, but I'm very proud because the whole Medical Futurist team, we have been working on that for so long and so hard to make it a very useful yet condensed short course for anyone interested in generative AI's role in the pharma industry. Konstantin, it seems that you had a question that you submitted not just on the live chat, but also pre-submitted through the event website. I didn't want to publish it on the chat. Okay, give me a second here. I need to remove it and then share the question with you all. Yes, are there any studies in place showing real impact from AI implementation in pharma? Cost saving, upside, confirmed risk avoidance besides drug design area? Very thoughtful question to ask. I can share with you one study I found, but in general, the reason why we don't have more, and you can find a link to the study in the chat, is not because it's not possible to prove it, but if you think about it, who would do such a study? You know, pharma companies have no incentive in doing such studies. Maybe about themselves, the individual companies one by one, but that's not a material for a study. But to do a study about pharma companies altogether, you need data as a researcher, and pharma companies won't give you that. So I just didn't expect to find anything useful, but at least I found one study, a comparative study on AI-based algorithms for cost prediction in pharmaceutical transport logistics. And I found that because tomorrow I will travel to Vienna and give a talk at a DHL event, a logistics event in life sciences about how the future of healthcare is related to supply chain and how AI will disrupt all that and all this. So maybe that study could be a good example here. Okay. Gnarik Grigorian had this question I'm sharing with you right now. How can we ensure the quality and safety of AI-driven digital health solutions? I think that's an easy question to answer because the same way that we would think about this with medications. So evidence-based medicine must apply. Simply, if there are peer-reviewed studies and clinical trials proving that a certain digital health technology or AI solution is as safe and efficient as something else on the market, or it's a new thing and its safety and efficiency can be proven through those studies and clinical trials, then simply medical professionals will be able to use that in practice. Literally, that's how simple it is. And of course, it takes time to gather that much evidence in the background, but the same rules must apply for digital health and AI solutions as for biomedical innovations and drugs. All right. Kevin Frymuth had this very interesting question here. What do you believe are the 2-3 biggest challenges for pursuit of AI by large pharma companies? Well, one is definitely how brave they are about investing heavily into AI specifically for the drug design and development process. Because maybe it's too early to see big results and success, maybe it's too late, because if they don't do it now, then they will lose the competitive advantage, and other companies will be not, months, but years, if not decades ahead of them. And I wouldn't be a pharma company CEO right now that need to make that decision. The second would definitely be about the idea of how we can use AI to replace very specific repetitive and database tasks in the logistics of a company and the supply chain in general. So I'm not talking about replacing supply chains or logistics, but tasks that are repetitive and data-based. And I would, if I were a pharma company CEO right now, I would ask all my teams to constantly look for these tasks, because human beings are useless at doing these tasks. We get tired, we might make a mistake, and our expertise and amazing understanding and vision are not required for doing those repetitive tasks. And the third is definitely about a constant contrast between the opportunities that pharma companies will keep on seeing about how much AI, especially advanced adaptive algorithms, could bring to the table in the form of value and ROI, and how slow regulations are about dealing with those very advanced technologies. That's going to be a painful contrast in the coming years, I think, for pharma companies. So I would name these three big challenges. Beata Szabadszállási, the question, is any AI software available which can support or even replace the healthcare professional visitors' job tasks? Are the doctors open for such a solution at all? Thanks. I'm pretty sure that when we talk about, pharma representatives who go to visit physicians, and they have been, at least many pharma companies I've seen have been experimenting with using tablets and a bit more digital solutions, sometimes not even visiting the physician in person, but sending engaging materials. They have been experimenting with that. And I'm pretty sure it's this task of sharing that kind of information with physicians is very easy to get replaced. Salesforce-like companies have been doing that for decades. But about the personal connection, that's the part I don't see how AI solutions could replace that. So knowing how pharma companies are sticking to their reps and the strategy they are using with their reps, I would think more along the lines of using AI for fine-tuning those messages, fine-tuning the materials they bring to the physician, fine-tuning the strategy they are using, but not, per se replacing those tasks and not sending reps anymore to medical professionals, even though that would be absolutely understandable and much more efficient and sustainable. But because of the lack of the human connections, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Charles K. has a very good question to ask. Do you think the future is cloud-based AI or locally run AI? It's a very good, very thoughtful question to ask, because it raises two trends in my mind. One trend is about I published an analysis about how primary care physicians could start using AI. Maybe they won't have a strong enough computer to run AI on it, but the same way that the video game industry started allowing players to use GPU and CPU power from afar, maybe the same way physicians could do the same. And I want to show this to you. I want to share the analysis with you. Just give me half a minute. This is cloud gaming can bring AI to the doctor's office. I'm sharing the link here. That's one. That's maybe how it should be cloud-based, not because we choose to make it cloud-based, but because physicians won't have the right IT background and infrastructure in their offices to run AI on them. And the other trend it raises for me is the difference between large and small language models. And literally, like today or yesterday, we shared news analysis on the Medical Futurist channels about a small, it was today, literally today. I'm sharing the link with you in the chat to a landing page on which I share that vocal biomarkers are on the rise. And in South Korea, a new mental health diary app started using generative AI, a small language model that can screen for signs of depression with 90% accuracy. And the reason why it was so big is that it was a small language model, meaning that even the internet is not required for the language model, so it can be run on a smartphone without a huge computer. So This way, I do think that because of the IT background of many physicians and many patients, cloud-based solutions are on the rise through these two directions. I hope I was able to be clear about that. Schizo Shreds. What a name. What an interesting username here. And thank you so much for being here, all of you, and asking these thoughtful questions. How do you think AI will impact neuroscience and psychiatry? Do you see it helping us find ways to actually look at the brain beyond MRI and post-mortem tissue samples? We could dedicate a whole new, an entire live Q&A session to this topic alone. Because regarding the scientific point of view, I do think that generative AI plays a big role now in the ideation process or stages for scientists, and in publication, and in analyzing radiology scans, especially MRI. And just think about it, just side note, think about that. AI doesn't even need images from the MRI machine. It can just analyze the results based on the spin directions that the MRI machine comes up with. It takes so much time for patients to spend in the MRI machine because we human physicians, we need images to look at, but AI doesn't. Just think about how better it would be, the whole MRI experience, by making it shorter to stay in the device, because AI can analyze the results right away. And in pathology now, we can see examples that AI can even analyze tissue samples without using dyes, specific pathology dyes on those samples. It can just simulate these processes. So absolutely, AI can play a major role in this whole evolution, starting with diagnosing patients with mental health conditions or providing generative AI support until the time they can finally meet a medical professional in a person, even to the scientific neuroscience background of analyzing these conditions. Paul has one more question here. Here it is. What do you think are the major hurdles in acceptance of AI tools and solutions by regulators, doctors, and patients? Well, let me show you a few of these. I have a presentation prepared for this exact purpose, and if you give me like half a minute here, I will share it with you, because in about an hour I will give a talk about AI's role in medical education to the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Canada, and I prepared a talk about that, and they are very interested in the risks and the issues about AI acceptance, and I put together a few thoughts about that. Yes, here they are. One issue that could help AI acceptance is about explainable AI, helping physicians and regulators understand what's inside AI, even though we have a big challenge about that because of the black box paradox. It means that if we want AI to stay artificial narrow intelligence, then of course we cannot allow it to come to get to the second stage. But this way we can see what is it like inside. We have to open it up to look in, but if you open it up, it might go online and get to the second stage. So it's a more of philosophical problem. The second is about privacy, that we need to help every single stakeholder of healthcare acknowledge that it's impossible to keep your privacy intact while using AI, but it's a sort of decision we have to make of how much of our privacy we are willing to give up in exchange for clear clinical benefits, like, a chance for a longer and healthier life. And just one more thing about this, we even published a paper about the trust. I think we need to improve trust in the system. And it's not something that we haven't done before with other technologies. Like if you think about the MRI machine, every physician studies in biophysics courses how the MRI machine works, and even I studied that, but I couldn't tell you the technical details. But I have a scientific understanding strong enough and good enough that I have trust in the technology, and I would be able to send patients to the MRI machine without the fear that it would harm them. And I think we have to reach the same amount of trust with this advanced technology we call AI, and we published a paper about that too. It's called a short guide for medical professionals in the era of artificial intelligence, and hopefully that would help anyone out there that are interested in healthcare to gain that trust about this exciting technology. Parveen Jaswal, do you see any clear trends of rise success of AI-based solutions for different therapeutic areas? I do, but first of all, not coming from pharma companies, and second of all, not focusing on therapeutic areas, but technologies. And I will describe what I mean by that. I think there are three like AI use areas that will mean that we can just, the use of AI can break through the walls of mainstream. And these three examples would include skin checking applications, cough detection, and vocal biomarkers. These are the low-hanging fruits for the pharma AI industry. Skin checking apps are amazing and have been involved in many peer-reviewed studies about how using a smartphone's camera, these AI solutions can detect very serious skin conditions. Vocal biomarkers are on the rise. I just shared news about that a few minutes ago. The idea is that by talking or having a phone conversation recording, these AI solutions could detect mental health conditions and like signs of Alzheimer's disease. And the third is cough or breathing pattern analysis. I gave a talk in Vienna last Saturday to the European Respiratory Society, and I talked about how cough could be the next big thing in the AI revolution. So I think definitely these should be highlighted instead of like therapeutic areas. All right, next question. We have only like 15 minutes left. What is the role of AI in pharmacy? Asked by Azadeh Jabari Agdam. Well, not the pharma companies, but not the pharma industry, but the pharmacies themselves. I had an analysis, as usual, we at the Medical Futurist have analysis about everything you can think of. And not so long ago, I wrote one analysis about the future of pharmacies. And I described three scenarios. And in one of these scenarios, I'm sharing the link with you right now. It was about and let me share the article with you too. It was about, one scenario was about pharmacies becoming like specialized point of care places for patients, meaning that they could 3D bioprint, they could 3D print medications in customized dosages. They could analyze patients' data from lab markers, biomarkers, genetic tests, variables, and of course, pharmacists wouldn't be able to do that themselves. They would need a sort of AI-based solutions to make it happen. So maybe that way. But I think the way that AI is being used at certain very advanced pharmacies would be more about analyzing supply chains, trying to find out, how to organize logistics better. In pharma industry, I see examples about procurement, dealing with resource management, how to order enough ventilators, when to know when a hospital is running out of a technology. And this was quite highlighted during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there were many logistical issues that AI helped solve back then. Okay. Amy Bose had this question about safety. How are we able to safely integrate innovative AI usage within the stringent regulatory confines of the pharma industry? I think again, we talked about this briefly before, the same way that the pharma industry has been able to bring to the market very innovative solutions like, mRNA-based vaccines, now even used for in cancer management, and biomedical innovations, biological treatments, really amazing stuff. Regulations became stricter, and regulatory bodies started understanding the technology, the science behind these, so they could come up with better guidelines and policies. I expect the same to happen around technologies. And I think the Food and Drug Administration in the US has been a prominent example, and they have been leading the way for every other policymaker and regulatory body in the world. All right. Koshechkin, I still cannot find a way to pronounce your name, but if it makes you feel better, my name is even more awful in my language. We are working on multi-agent AI as a way to avoid hallucinations in answers from generative AI models. How do you think it would help to overcome limitations and extend application in AI in healthcare? That's an absolutely good direction to go. I totally understand the reasons behind that. I think we can only reduce such limitations and hallucinations in a significant way if we can have generative AI absolutely and totally trained on medical databases. And even that wouldn't ensure that the models won't hallucinate. So I think that as it's technically impossible to avoid having any kind of hallucinations in a generative AI model, no matter how much effort you put into that, you cannot bring the risk down to zero. I more sort of believe in the notion that the users, healthcare professionals, patients, policymakers need to obtain the skill of prompt engineering to assess when a model hallucinates or not. And as usual, we have a scientific publication about that. So I'm on the other side of this equation. I believe in the power of the user to find out when the model hallucinates or not. Then being on the side of the developer, being able to say that our model won't hallucinate at all, that's technically impossible to say that. All right, as we are getting closer to the very end of this live Q&A, and again, thank you so much for being with me, so many of you, and asking these very thoughtful questions. I would like to share three things with you. First of all, as if you might not know that, then please know about that. At the Medical Futurist, we are very active on every major social media channel. We publish analysis about news, studies, announcements many times every single day. We have 2 analysis as articles every week on the website, and we have a newsletter that's for free for everyone. We have 25,000 subscribers. And every Tuesday, I send out that I write personally the 7 most important news about digital health and AI. So please feel free to subscribe and be part of this community. The second point I would like to draw your attention to is that we have quite an exclusive community already on patreon.com. It's a place where we share content we don't share anywhere else. So this community receives my own handmade analysis every Monday and a summary every Friday about the big news and trends in these areas. They also have priority in the live Q&A sessions. They get all the ebooks we publish and interviews that we make with thought leaders and exciting leaders of companies, leaders of exciting companies in digital health and pharma AI. So they keep on getting that. And the third that I'm the most proud of is, again, the Thinkific website, where we have 4 courses published. I cannot tell you how much we worked on each of these courses. One is about digital health in general, a full day course. One is about AI in healthcare, a full day course. One is about generative AI in healthcare, a short course. And we have our newest course published a few weeks ago actually. It's about using futures methods in healthcare. And that's, if you know me, that's my main mission, to democratize the use of futures methods. So analyzing the future would not be just accessible to a group of elite experts and futurists like me, but anyone could be able to analyze the future, not through subjective opinions, but through established methods that have been used in futures studies for 4 or 5 decades now. And anyone going through that course will obtain these skills and will get anticipatory consciousness instead of being anxious about the future, and build emotional resilience. So essentially, you will be able to tell the future of any fields you are interested in, the future of cardiology or cancer management, on the way the pharma will use AI, any of these, it could be in your domain of interest, because you would know which methods to reach out to analyze the future of those exciting areas. So we are quite active in all these, and you are more than welcome to join us even on the Medical Futurist YouTube channel. We have now almost 170,000 subscribers, and we will have a new season of videos coming soon, in about 2 weeks' time from now on, with very exciting topics. So all in all, thank you so much for asking these, 30, 40 questions. I really appreciate you being with me here. In the next Q&A, I won't tell the topic, but we will have another exciting topic to cover in a few weeks' time. And in the meantime, I'm quite approachable. That's why I have my email address on the Medical Futurist website, and we are again active on every social media channel. So if you follow us, if you subscribe to us, if you support us, thank you so much for that support. So we, the team, about 15 people working at the Medical Futurist, we can keep on providing you with objective content about this exciting transformation that healthcare has been going through. And if not, then please visit these sites and the links I just published, and hopefully you will become one of us, a part of this exciting and growing community. For you that have been here, thank you so much again for the thoughtful questions and for your time. And until the next time, have an excellent day. Bye.